Hello there, cultists. Has it really been a month since we last saw each other? We're at the beginning of February, officially one of the most depressing times of the year, but we got you back with today's episode. Hopefully, we'll lift your spirits enough to keep you ticking over for a little while longer. Remember, good times are coming wherever you are. I'm DK, your host on these little sojourns into fondly, or not, remembered cinema from yesterday. And what better way to keep us going through these dark winter months than with a comedy? And today, do we have a comedy for you? No, seriously, do we? As we look at Spielberg's infamous 1979 ensemble, some would say misstep, 1941. But as always, I'm not alone in this endeavour. I'm joined by a couple of guests. Our first one, you've heard her on the regular Silver Screen show, but today she's making her first appearance on Cult Classics. It's Adrienne.
Hello, everyone. Yay.
It's nice to have you here, Adrienne. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Southern California is cold, but not cold as like Illinois or something right now.
Well, welcome to your first Cult Classics. You'll be pleased to know there are no quizzes here.
Oh, thank you.
No problem. And also joining us today is a guest who's been itching to get on the show for some time now. And with this title, he's finally gotten his chance. It's Rob.
Hello, how you all doing?
I'm all right, mate. How are you?
Oh, I'm very well, thank you. I'm very
Nice.
well.
Nice one. Do you want to tell the listeners a little bit about yourself? You can. You don't have to. It's completely up to you.
Well, you can find me on Twitter under the pseudonym of Resting Dad Face, basically because I just have an opinion about everything. And I'm now a evil, dark consultant who goes around companies telling them what they should do. They don't listen, and then I tell them what they could do, and they pay me loads of money for it. So yeah. And I do have a qualification in films. I have an A level in film, which is very odd. Yes, I have a D in films.
So, it's more than me, mate.
Well, I've actually got two A levels in it. It's A level in film, which was around the whole sort of filmy genre stuff. We spent a lot of time on Orson Welles, classic, black and white, Rosebud, Citizen Kane.
Citizen Kane.
Yeah, and French film noir, which basically is black and white and ladies smoking cigarettes and blokes going boff. And that's about it, really. And the other one is more of a technical one where you actually get to use, they weren't film cameras, but they were video cameras and editing suites and a whole load of stuff. And I did actually get a C in that one. So my ability to make stuff is better than to actually remember stuff. So this is going to be quite an interesting one.
Well, I've got to ask, because were you bringing Citizen Kane up? Mike will probably be listening to this. We had an argument, Mike and myself, the other day. While the TV was on, if on one side there was Citizen Kane and on the other side there was Ghostbusters, the original, which one would you go for?
Ghostbusters.
Thank you.
It's simple.
So there you go, Mike. Oh, yours again.
Citizen Kane is a very good classic film. Mm-hmm. And that's where it ends. Because it's got nothing to do with Orson Welles. He was just a good actor, and everybody else made that film the so-called greatest film ever. So his lighting director, his sound director, his film editor, all of them had the ability, because he just turned around, did a bit of a Steve Jobs and said, just go off and do an amazing film and I will act in it. And that's all it is. So it's not Orson Welles at all. It's just a film, for God's sake. It's there to entertain and for you to enjoy.
I'm liking this so far. As I say, it's taken a little while for this recording to come about, but hopefully it'll scratch that itch you've been suffering from, maybe even the recording one too. But what we normally do with first-timers on this show is immediately drop them on some metaphorical island and ask what their desert island disc is. It gives the listeners a little glimpse into their taste, if not their psyche. And it's always fascinating to me to see what everyone would choose. So I'm going to ask both of you, because although Adrienne's been on the shows before, she's not been on Cult Classics. So Adrienne, Rob, if you had to choose one and one only favorite cult movie, one that by far outshines everything else you've seen, what would your choice be and why? And I'm going to come to you first on this one, Adrienne.
Oh, okay. If I'm alone, I'm going to want a happy movie. I'm not going to want to be depressed. So I'd say no Clockwork Orange. Thank you. No Train Spotting. But let's see, maybe Rocky Horror, because then I can sing and dance and stay sort of sane. If that's not available, I guess Princess Bride.
No. We always go with your first choice here.
Okay.
That's another one for Rocky Horror. You would believe how many people have chosen that over the months.
Well, you can sing and dance, and it's got happy moments and etc.
I'll be completely honest with you. I've only ever seen it once. We're doing it later this year, and I'm not entirely looking forward to it, because when I saw it, I wasn't in the best of moods, and I just thought, is this thing never going to end? So
it really takes a couple of turns, doesn't it? You take a turn this way and a turn that way. Yeah.
By the time they're all jumping in the swimming pool, I was thinking, all right, come on now. But
hey, don't dream it, be it.
And what about you, Rob? If you had to choose one, what would you pick?
Oh, that's a very tricky question. There is so many. My first choice would actually be Some Like It Hot. Basically because it has the best line ever in it right at the end.
Oh, what is the line? I don't know.
Well, nobody is perfect. And it's basically... so the premise behind Some Like It Hot, for those who don't know, is two guys get spotted by the mafia, and the mafia want to kill them. So they dress up as ladies, and they play trombone. Is it trombone?
Yeah.
Bull fiddle and trombone, or is it? I don't know. But they're stuck in Florida, and one of the guys, this other guy, this rich millionaire, falls in love with him, and at the end the guy's confessing that he's not a woman, he's a guy, and the millionaire says, well, nobody's perfect. I just think it's superb.
Good.
There's some good choices there, so thanks for that, guys. So now we know a little bit more about you, we'll jump straight into to looking at today's movie. Now, regarded by many as the first serious setback in Spielberg's career, 1941 began life when Robert Zemeckis pitched the concept to John Milius as a serious depiction of real-life 1942 Japanese bombardment of Elwood, California, the subsequent false alarm of a Japanese air raid on Los Angeles, the 1943 Zoot Suit riots, and an incident in which the US Army placed an anti-aircraft gun in a homeowner's yard on the Maine coast. The story only became a comedy after Steven Spielberg became involved, and the script was rewritten during the production of 1977's Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The film premiered on December 13th, 1979, and received mixed reviews from critics, and that's putting it mildly, with negative comments made concerning the script, pacing, and humour, but praise towards the visual effects, sound, production design, and John Williams' score, together with the cinematography. It was not as financially nor critically successful as many of Spielberg's other films until that point, notably Jaws and the aforementioned Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Because of this, the film has often been erroneously referred to as a box office bomb and a failure. But in actuality, it grossed $90 million worldwide and returned a profit, making it a success. It also received 3 nominations at the 1980 Academy Awards. Now, the film's popularity increased after an expanded version, which was restoring the movie after the studio demanded cuts for the theatrical release, aired on TV in the 80s. Despite it still proving divisive, it's gained popularity as the decades have passed, with subsequent television broadcasts and home video reissues raising it to cult status. And 1941 is currently on various streaming services, depending on your location, as well as being available on DVD, Blu-ray, and I believe in 4K in some territories. Now, I distinctly remember the first time I saw this one, well, at least some of it. I was quite young, if I recall, maybe, 11 or 12. I was staying at my great aunt's, who would, I guess the term would be, babysit me when my parents were working or went out. And one evening I was round at hers, and according to the TV guide, the movie Blazing Saddles was supposed to be on TV at a certain channel at a certain time. We flicked over, expecting the movie to start, and we were around an hour early. And so instead, what we got was this insane, chaotic mess that instantly had me hooked, just through the sheer lunacy on screen. We came on midway through the aircraft above LA battle, and I was just hooked. Blazing Saddles was just part 2 of a comedy double bill that night. And I tracked down 1941 as soon as I could after that to watch it all, and the rest is history. I know you hadn't really seen this one until it came up on the schedule, isn't that right, Adrienne?
I had never seen it. I've seen every Steven Spielberg movie, especially when I was little, but I never seen this because it just didn't look that great.
Oh, okay. And what about you, Rob? What were your first experience with this one? Do you've got any special memories?
So yes, Christmas. So I think it was on. I think it must have been either 1984 or 1985. And my brother's 10 years older than me, and he'd recorded it, and he told me the day after. He says, "Oh, you got to watch this film, 1941. It's hilarious." Now, at the time, because it had John Belushi on it and Dan Aykroyd, who are 2 of my favorite actors and comedians going, I basically went, "Oh, it must be like the Blues Brothers." It wasn't, but it was. I watched it, and my mouth was slack jaw from the beginning up until the end. So I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I saw it. I think when I watched it, it was Christmas Eve. So I see this that and Die Hard. This is a Christmas movie as far as I'm concerned. So that's the first time I saw it.
Yeah, Santa Claus is in it, therefore it's a Christmas movie.
Yeah, he's firing at the aircraft. Am I right in thinking that you've watched it recently for the show?
I have. So I watched it about 2 weeks ago, and I'm about 3/4 of the way into it now again.
Oh,
so,
it's not that long a film, mate. Jeez.
It's 2 hours, and there's so much YouTube content to go at as well. You get distracted very quickly.
Have your thoughts changed on it since you first saw it? I mean, it's now well over 40 years old. Do you think it's aged well? Not so much.
It's one of those. I always find it interesting whenever you watch something when you're a kid, and then when you're a teenager, and then when you're as an adult. You see different things, and you find different things funny. So the bits with Slim Pickings in the submarine. I laugh. I remember laughing at that when I was a kid, and now I'm laughing at it even harder. It's like it's lying there that says, you ain't going to get shit out of me. I've been constipated for a week. As he's about to down some prune juice. I just found that funny as a kid and as a teenager. Now being a 50-year-old adult, I can relate. So I just find that line even funnier than what it is now. And also noticing some of the characters in there. So one of the characters in there was Max out of Heart to Heart. I didn't realize that when I was a kid, but I do now. So
Lionel Stander.
Exactly. So it's stuff that comes out even more, and sort of seeing a very young John Candy as well. Again, another actor I loved when I was a kid, when I was a teenager. So yeah, different bits of that come out. That's funny. It's still an odd film because it's not what you expect from Steven Spielberg. His films before that was Jaws, and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. 3 very, very, very brilliant films put together. And I remember, reading articles about this particular film, and they were basically saying, "Oh yeah, well, Spielberg shouldn't do a comedy." I'm sorry, have they not watched Close Encounters? Have they not watched Jaws? the comedic moments in those films are absolutely glorious. I think we should get a bigger boat, comparing the size of like scars on their legs and stuff like that. Yeah, that's funny. Have they looked at the shark? That in itself is hilarious.
The weighty turd.
Exactly. To say that Spielberg doesn't know how to do comedy, that's wrong. I just think there was an element of snobbery. They were expecting him to be a serious director, and he was still finding his feet at that time. And it's just a lovely, well put together film.
Yeah, I do remember one of his friends, who has remained nameless, cowards, saying at the time, "Why is he doing a comedy? When has Stephen ever been funny?" And it does have a lot of jokes that I think fall flat, but it's just such a scattergun approach. But you can't help but think there are some funny parts in it. Having said that, I do think there are certain elements, I mean, we'll probably get to it as we go on, that maybe haven't aged as well as others. So yeah, what do you think, Adrienne? You've experienced this for the first time in the last few weeks, so coming out with fresh eyes, what are your impressions?
Well, the first time through, I just didn't like it. I thought, oh no, this is just not getting me. I'm not interested in it. I don't love any of these characters. I watched this whole movie and I don't really care about any of these characters except maybe one. But then I decided to watch it again, and then I watched it again. So I mean, I didn't hate it. I see that there are some strong points to it. I see some funny things, but I can also understand the criticisms of it. But I like some of the characters at the end now. So, and at least there was a good happy ending. So yeah, but I understand why they didn't. If he was trying to do something like, Meatballs or Animal House, or the slapstick stuff, yeah, a lot of it didn't stick. But I think letting Dan Aykroyd maybe fool around and do some stuff, and you're lucky you got to get some good scenes with him, maybe him just doing some funny things, it helped. And there are some funny jokes. There's some funny jokes, and the Slim Pickens stuff. I like him. He's a funny guy, but I thought the funniest line was when he got serious because that knife came out. Like he said something like, "What you doing with that knife, boy?" He went from being kind of goofy to being real serious, and that made it funny.
Yeah.
I think the problem with this is, and a lot of the critics said, there is just way too much in it, and I think because of that, there's quite a few different genres of comedy. I mean, as you've mentioned, there's like, you've got your Animal House, you've got your kind of sex comedy subplot going on, you've got some pure slapstick. It's just all over the place. I mean, even if you just look at the movie poster gives you some kind of indication of just how chaotic this thing is. And I think that's where it started to fall down for a lot of people. I mean, it does have that element of chaos to it, but it's something I appreciate. I love that about it. To me, it's like watching how I would imagine a live action Muppet show is.
Yeah.
Definitely need one of those.
Yeah. I mean, Spielberg himself, he said some people think that it was an out of control production, but it wasn't. What happened on the screen was pretty out of control, but the production was pretty much in control. He says he doesn't dislike the movie at all. He's not embarrassed by it. He just thinks it wasn't funny enough.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, some scenes were so noisy during filming, the crew couldn't hear him yell "cut." So he had to fire a prop machine gun in the air just to get the action to stop.
Jeez.
And I just love that little analogy. To me, it just sums this movie up.
Maybe. I think one of the storylines could have gone away altogether, and it would have been a better movie. I was not comfortable with the way they wrote the Treat Williams character, and I love him. I mean, I watch Hair kind of religiously, and I just love Treat Williams. Same year, by the way, that this came out, Hair came out. But I didn't like the rapey stuff, like pulling her under the car and all that stuff. I was like, I didn't need that. So many severe scenes to make Wally the hero. You know,
Yeah,
I thought Treat was a little severe. And if it was made today, I don't think it would be so severe like that.
No, I do think they did try and balance it out with the Wendy Jo Sperber subplot, where you know he kind of gets his comeuppance in the end, but it hasn't aged very well. It's not very comfortable to watch. The bit where, as you say, he's dragging her under the tank.
Yeah, I didn't like it at all. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's such a shame because Treat Williams is such a really good actor, and he has got some great comedic timing.
He does, and he's funny, but they just made him too severe, and they kept those scenes in. And you know, John Candy is a racist. I didn't like, because I love him so much. But I think if they would have lost made the Treat Williams a little bit less severe, it would have been funnier, because there are some really heavy moments. The whole Dumbo thing. You know, Dumbo, during that time, that movie did actually provide people some escapism from the Pearl Harbor attacks and everything. And just the scene in the movie theater when the baby mine scene, like that was a beautiful scene. And during war, you have just moments where, you know, people still need some comfort. I like that. Yeah, I like that part.
Yeah, I also like the scene a little later on where he's just having fun and singing along with When I See an Elephant Fly.
Yeah.
He's just really getting into it, and he's looking around at, you know, his fellow servicemen, and just like trying to get them to gin them along into it. I think it's got some fantastic moments in that maybe just a little let down by the thing as a whole. And when you are watching something like that, and it cuts to a scene that you're not particularly comfortable in, it can throw you off balance.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly, when I was watching it, you know, a couple of weeks ago, I was going, I don't recall that being that way. But as you said, as you're getting older, you watch it now and you go, ooh, no. Yeah, that should be edited now. That should be edited now. And yet you still have the bits with Eddie Deezer, and they're up in that Ferris wheel.
That's great. I had never
feel for the guy.
But funny thing, I don't remember seeing him in other movies. I mean, I think he was in the Porky series. Is that right? Yeah, I never watched any of those. Star Trek was out, sorry, so Porky's got the boot. There was something Star Trek to watch, but he is the voice of a character in one of our little favorite cartoons in our house, and that is how I know him. No, it's called Oswald. It's about a little octopus and his friends, and he plays this little gentle guy, and we love him for that. But I since I had never seen it, when the mannequin puppet came out, that can't remember what it's called, but I laughed so hard. I laughed at that thing through the whole movie, especially when like he's more engaged in the conversation than the actor is. I thought that was well done. Yeah,
I do like
so many storylines, and theirs was one of them. The people stuck up on the Ferris wheel.
Yeah, I do love that little bit where she just says, "Scared to heights, huh? Me too."
Yeah, and him coming up first out of the water. Come on.
Yeah. Water coming out of his nose.
And then at the end, where everybody's like kind of recovering at the destroyed house is asleep, and the dummy is snoring.
Right. And the little kid is stealing the wallet and putting it in someone else's pocket. I caught that on my third time through, and I thought that is going to really start some chaos. These kids are bad boys.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at the cast, it's just a phenomenal cast, really.
Yeah. It is phenomenal.
And you can't. We would be here all evening if we were just going to, go through everybody and their IMDb and that kind of thing. So is there any characters or any performances other than Eddie, obviously, because we've already mentioned Eddie, that you think is an absolute standout in this?
For me personally, no, because when you watch it, it reminds. I mean, this is for obviously not for international viewers, but for listeners, but for UK ones. It's almost like the Fast Show. Each scene is on for about 3 or 4 minutes, and then boom, it's into the next scene, or boom, it's onto the next part of the story, and it's so quick and so evolving. And as you said, the cast list is so big. I mean, Mickey Rourke is in it.
Yeah, it was his theatrical debut.
Yeah. So you go through it and you just go, oh, where does it end with people? For me, I would say probably Dan Aykroyd, because he's just being Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah.
He started out doing the improv scene back in the early 70s and stuff like that. This is where he's getting into films before he does the Blues Brothers, and it's just that bit, particularly where he's doing the aircraft cannon, anti-aircraft cannon, and he's just going through it as if it's like a sales pitch, selling a car. And he's going there, and you don't press this, and then you pull this, and you don't do that, and you don't do that, and you do that, and if you do that, then this will happen. And the little kid's rotating it round as he's doing it, and he's just absolutely. It's almost like in one take he's doing it.
I would say
I'd say that his is the standout throughout the entire thing.
Believe it or not, this was his theatrical debut also.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Ned Beatty in this. I think Ned Beatty's fantastic. Christopher Lee, Tim Matheson, who pretty much carries the sex comedy aspects of this. Him and Nancy Allen.
Yeah,
I just think it's done really well. Going back to Robert Stack as General Stilwell, he wasn't Spielberg's. I'm not sure if you guys know this. He wasn't Spielberg's first choice. Spielberg originally went to John Wayne and Charlton Heston. They both turned it down, and then but John Wayne actually called Spielberg up apparently and tried to get him to drop it completely because John Wayne felt it was unpatriotic.
So
even back then, you had the loons.
I'm not a John Wayne fan.
Well, apparently, I mean, I don't know if how aware you are of whether this is true, Adrienne, being from the Navy, but apparently then John Wayne turned up during the war to kind of, give some cheer to the.
He did do that. That's true.
And apparently they booed him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Robert.
It's controversial. Very controversial guy, but I think Robert Stack filled it well. I mean, I can understand why Charlton Heston didn't take it. It didn't seem like a Charlton Heston kind of a thing, but Robert Stack had that comedy timing where he could kind of do some things like that. It would have been unwatchable if it was John Wayne, I think, for me.
Yeah. And then when you look at Robert Stack's career after that, I mean, the guy went on to do Airplane. That guy has got some serious comedy chops.
Yes, he does. Yeah, he really does. And I was so surprised because, watching it for the first time, I want to see all the scenes, and I was like, I did a double take. I was like, is that Patti LuPone? Is she going to be in it more? Like, is she a main character? Is she just coming in? Does she come? Nope. They used her for like 12 seconds.
Yeah.
And she's amazing. And Penny Marshall has lines, but she's uncredited. You know what I mean? Like those two women I just love. And I was just surprised, but maybe I picture myself, they were just around Hollywood, maybe making another movie, and they had a week off or something and they came in for filming or something like that.
It's possible. I mean, did either of you guys recognize the motorcycle driver who delivered the message to Stilwell?
The guy that was covered in sand or whatever?
Sand and dust. No.
I know he came from Barstow, so he was all sandy.
It's John Landis.
Oh, that's funny. Is it really?
Yeah, that's why.
He
That's
doesn't look
why.
tall, he doesn't look tall enough to be John Landis.
I know, but that's why when Belushi goes up to him and says, "Oh, look, a baby wolf," that's because at that point they were filming American Werewolf in London.
Oh my gosh, those funny lines. You know, they really get each other sometimes.
Yeah, he apparently had more lines, but they were cut because him and Spielberg had a falling out later on with regards to the Twilight Zone, the movie. I'm not going to go into that here. That's for another time. But they were put back in the extended version. Have either of you guys seen that one?
No, but I hear there's more character development from my guy Wally, and I'd like to see that. I just last night was reading to get my brain into it, and I didn't know there was an extended cut.
Yeah, there's I have it on Blu-ray. If you get the Blu-ray, you get one disc with the theatrical, one disc with the extended, and there's a brilliant scene where they actually kidnap Holliswood. You know, in this one, you just see him just go, let's get him. And the next thing you know, they're boarding him aboard, they're bringing him aboard the sub. In the extended version, they actually go to his kind of tree farm, and they're all the Japanese soldiers are dressed as Christmas trees. And
oh wow! That's how they capture him.
Yeah, he goes to try and chop one of them down, and the soldier just keeps jumping above the axe, and poor old Hollis can't figure out what's going on.
Oh my gosh, that's funny because he's a tree.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. That'd be funny to see.
Yeah, so every time he swings the axe, the tree jumps over.
I mean, it's supposed to be a comedy, and that's the scene they cut. They don't cut the horrible scenes with Treat Williams.
I know. It's if you do get a chance, it is worth seeing. And I know you're not a big fan of the scene at the start, Adrienne, with the polar bear club woman.
Ugh. Yeah, I mean, it's funny since it's the same lady from Jaws. I get that he's doing his own movie, spoofing it, but it was so phallic. I was just like, oh, really? She's writing a submarine thing? Come on. But I guess it was all right. Keeps people interested if that's what you want to see.
It's made some fans come up with the theory that that's the actual mother of the same woman from Jaws. It's the things that people come up with to try and for their headcanon. but yeah, as we were saying, such just a phenomenal cast, and I think the fact that a lot of them play it kind of straight, like you mentioned, Robert Lionel Stander. I just think it works so well. I mean, do you guys have any others?
John Belushi, such a quirky character in that, and again, it was probably his. He wouldn't have been his day because I think he wasn't in Stripes. He was definitely in Animal House.
Yeah.
But it's just again an anarchistic sort of character, but he is such a comic strip character in it. And yes, I know that as part of the advertising for this, they actually created their own comic strip that looked a bit like the Mad magazine. And he was playing sort of like the all-American stereotype, let's get the Japs, that kind of thing. Yeah. And in this film, he's flying a P-41 Curtis Kitty Hawk, which is a really terrible plane for the Americans. I'm sorry, I'm also a bit of a World War II nerd as well. So it was a terrible aeroplane. It was a sack of spanners until the P-51 and P-47 came out. But anyway, the point is he's just an utter lunatic. But you can well imagine that there were probably characters like that in the Air Force, because the Air Force was such a newish concept for during that time. So again, it's just John Belushi being John Belushi, but dressed up as a pilot flying an airplane.
Well, apparently that bit where Robert Stack says that is the craziest son of a bitch I've ever seen, that was actually him talking about Belushi, and they just kept it in.
Oh, that's funny.
I'm not surprised.
Probably because he was spitting water on everybody or spitting things out, and chewing a soggy cigar. And
I love that. The fact that the guy
Yeah.
just, it's almost like that drink problem in Airplane. Every time
Yeah.
he takes a swing something, he just spits it out. And there's the scene where they try and lift him up onto the wing of the plane and he falls off the other side.
Falls off the other side.
That wasn't scripted. That just happened anyway. He just fell off and they decided to keep it in. I think with somebody like Belushi, you just wind him up, let him go, and then you just think, yeah, we'll keep that. We'll keep that. So yeah, I mean, there's just so much going on in this, and I mean, Kubrick suggested that it should have been marketed as a drama rather than a comedy because he just didn't think it was funny. But to this day, I can watch this, and yeah, there are parts that haven't aged well. But regardless of that, by the time the end credits are rolling, there are certain scenes that always, and I mean always, have me crying with laughter.
Which ones? Which one?
I'm going to go immediately straight to my Avatar. Aykroyd,
oh yeah,
thinking he's a bug.
That's so funny. I was like, did they leave the camera rolling and the guy's just being a silly head and they put that in there, or did he crack? Was it meant to be that he cracked? I'm not sure, but that is so funny.
I love that. I love that, and I love that. Douglas, don't you dare fire that gun in this house. It's just the windows blowing out. I think it, for me personally, it dragged. As I've got older, it drags a little at the start, a little bit more, and I'm not so much interested in the Wally, and you know, but the minute it gets to, for want of a better term, the dance scene in the USO club, I think it kicks into high gear, and from that point on, I am fully on board, and I just love the hell out of this film.
I loved that dance scene, to be honest, because it's sort of it's just a beautiful moment in the middle of everything. And was he gonna think about making this a musical for like 5 minutes?
So apparently that was the case. There was one of the comments Spielberg made was, it would have probably worked better if it was a musical.
I understand. I loved that whole USO thing, and the James Caan in the one scene, you know, as another uncredited actor, you know, starting a fight. And he's gonna start a fight.
And it's just that, I mean, there's such long takes during that fight scene that are so hard to get right. And then if they foul up, the setup on that. So I just can't fault Spielberg's direction on that.
And the camera work is amazing.
Oh,
camera
beautiful.
work is wonderful.
I mean, they're all having this fight in the dance club, and you think this cannot get any worse. And then the next thing, it cuts to outside, and there's one guy saying, "Come on, let's get him." And then there's just huge, hundreds of people running down the street, and the amount of things that's going on at the same time. As I'm watching it, even to this day, especially when you take into account the fights in the street and where the tank's going through the paint factory, and you think surely there must have been at least a couple of people really injured on this thing.
And didn't it look like some of the guys fell off? Yeah, right in the street, ka-kunk. I couldn't find anything. I looked and I was like, was anybody injured on this movie? But no, didn't seem to be anything. Bumps and bruises.
I've been looking it up because you just think surely people must have, the injuries on this must have been something chronic. It's like something from a Jackie Chan movie.
That's funny, yeah. Oh.
I mean, Spielberg regretted ceding control of some of the action scenes and miniature sequences, such as the Ferris wheel collapse. But I think they hold up really, really well.
I think they do too, and it kind of adds to the camp. I think that was well done, actually. Imagine if you tried to do that in real life.
But it's like one of those things that you can't, when you see it, you can't then unsee it. So all of those scenes with the airplanes in it, with the Ferris wheel.
Yeah.
But then going back to one of Spielberg's films in the future, so Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, where they're having the minecart chase. Now, when I was a kid, I watched it. It was amazing, and then I watched the program on how they did that. So I was like, "Oh, I love it." Oh no, it's animation.
Yeah.
And you watch it again, you go, "Oh my god, it looks really, really bad." And then you watch this, and you go, "Yeah." Things didn't move on that much, did they? Really, from 79 through to like 85. Never mind. Roll on CGI.
See, I really like it. I think when the two planes are kind of dogfighting down the street, I just think it looks, to me, it still looks beautiful. I mean, who was it? L.B. Abbott and A.D. Flowers, who were in charge of the special effects, and it were nominated for an Academy Award. And I just think it, even now, to me, maybe it's because I saw it as I was a kid and I've grown up, and you know what it's like. You look at things from back when you were a kid and they still look good. I mean, I can watch sequences in Howard the Duck and think, oh, that looks all right. And then, the other day I was watching Lord of the Rings, and some of the CG, you think, oh, it's fraying a bit around the edges now. So, yeah, I just love it. As I say, as soon as it hits that section at the USO Club, from then on, with the exception of maybe that, the Treat Williams subplot, I just think that's when it really hits its stride, and I don't think it lets up. Yeah. So going on to the soundtrack, the sound design, and this apparently is one of Spielberg's favorite soundtracks, and it is extremely catchy. And I'm a bit of a soundtrack buff myself. I don't own this. I've never owned it, but there are certain times I will end up, for some reason, humming the main march from this, and it's just completely out of the blue. And I think it's one of those that sticks with you. It's just kind of catchy.
Yeah. It's one of those where it's catchy. It's following the genre of the time. Of the 1940s of sort of swing and stuff like that, and Glenn Miller and
right.
But it's bringing a sort of, I wouldn't say a modern spin, because there's no synths in there, bearing in mind it was like 79, but it as they said when they were writing it, they were saying it is military music but upbeat. You'd never get a British version of it. It would be too solemn. But for American, it works. It's like, yes, this is fun. This is happy. And almost in a way, probably at the time, that even though, I'm going into my deep A-level film
let's do it.
now.
Yeah, let's do it.
Go, okay, here's the juxtaposition. At the point that they're making this music, you could almost say, right, America is entering World War II. They're going into Europe first, even though they also need to do the Pacific as well in terms of the Japanese. But there's this like almost gung-ho element of it. Yeah, war is bad, but we're going to war. It's going to happen. Let's go for it. And everybody's involved. And there's like a theme throughout the music that's carried all the way through. To give you that element of upbeatness. And that's probably only why I got a D.
One element that I do like about this, it doesn't intrinsically put one side as superior to any other kind of nationality, if you know what I mean. Everybody's crazy, everybody's insane, everybody to some extent is a bunch of morons. And I do like that about this. It doesn't say, oh, the Americans are better, or the Germans are really efficient. I mean, one of the things I read while reading this, that Christopher Lee's character and Toshiro Mifune's character, as you can see the subtitles on the screen, they're obviously not needing a translator between them. And basically all it is each one understands the other's language, but they're just stubborn and refusing to acknowledge the fact that they do understand each other's language. Everybody in this has their little flaw, and that's what I do love about this. Nobody comes out I mean, obviously there are people that come out a lot worse, but nobody comes out about this unscathed, as it were. That, and I think it sums it up where the guy runs on screen and starts shooting, and he says, "What are you shooting at?" And he says, "I don't know, whatever they're shooting at."
Yeah, exactly. And they don't know which way they're shooting or what's happening.
So, yeah, I mean, it is over the top, and it's one of the reasons that I love it. But it has proved very divisive. I mean, I'm going to speak to you as a military person here, Adrienne. Did you find that element offensive?
Just that it was a comedy.
Yeah.
No, because it's a comedy. It's clearly a comedy. You know, there's lots of goofball military comedies. You know, there was what was that show, Hogan's Heroes and stuff like that. Like, there's goofball stuff that has to be made about everything for us humans with diverse brains to stay sane. But no, I didn't. It was clearly a comedy. It wasn't disrespectful. It was the goofball.
I mean, yeah, it has proved very divisive. But I will say that there's a couple of fantastic things I found online. First one is an article by Mark Hughes in Forbes magazine, December 2011, and this refers back to what you said right at the start. I think it was you, Rob. It says 1941 is not just one of the best Christmas films ever, but one of the best comedies ever made. This is for laughs for the grown-ups. It's not a family film, and they just love it. But the one that stands out, and I was just flicking through, and I would say 90% of the reviews on Letterboxd for this film are really bad. It's just not liked whatsoever. It is very divisive. But I did find this one, and forgive me if I mispronounce your name, but it's by Justin DeClue on Letterboxd, and his review starts off, "Everyone screams at the top of their lungs for 146 minutes. If you see something, it will be destroyed. When a person walks on screen, they will be punched, thrown to the ground, or knocked over. There are no peaks or valleys, just incessant, endless, numbing gunfire." He gave it 4 stars. And I just think that is a perfect review, because it is. And even when it comes down to the end credits, I mean, he does say later on in the review, even the end credits have explosions. But even prior to that, when you've got the cast list, when it's bringing up the clips, the majority of them are just screaming.
Oh yeah, that was the end credits, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was funny. The end credits, yeah.
So, I mean, when it comes to the legacy of this one, I mean, it's going to probably be a little harder for you, Adrienne, with regards to this, because you've only just experienced it for the first time. But when it comes to the legacy, what do you think as 1941 as a piece of film, and B, as a cult classic status? I mean, in your opinion, does it deserve its cult classic status? Do you think it holds up to kind of other films, especially the comedies of the time, or is it something that you'd rather gloss over and you'll probably never come back to?
No, I think it's important to see it. I think it's important to analyze it in the world of film. I mean, it has so many great actors, but still, you know, you could talk about why was it panned? You know, could a different director have taken it in different directions? You just can't, you know, compare it to Steven Spielberg's other genius pictures. But yeah, it's definitely a cult classic. I mean, I feel more film educated ever since I watched it, so I'm glad I did it personally. I think it should be a cult classic.
See, and you heard that from an American who is in the military, folks. So, you know. What about you, Rob?
I think it is. Yeah, as I said before, it's a Christmas classic, particularly in my heart. And I know that's one of those things when everybody sort of takes a mickey at a Die Hard, saying whether it's a Christmas film or not.
It is.
It definitely is.
It is. There's no way, other way of looking at it. And this is, to me, this is as well. It's odd. It's strange. Even after watching it again, after not seeing it for like 20 years, it still put a grin on my face, and there was bits that I was laughing away at that I hadn't noticed before. I totally agree that the Trent Williams stuff yeah, that I was uncomfortable watching those bits. I was going, oh, I don't remember this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely a cult classic. It's one of those. I think to me, this is better than Stripes in terms of comedy films and stuff like that about the military. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a good film. Everybody should watch it. If anything, to see how things have changed, see how humor has changed, to see whether this was actually ahead of its time or not as well. So yeah, I think it's a great film, and everybody should watch it. Just try it.
Nice one. So so what we'll do now, we'll move on to our personal highlights. So I'm going to go straight in and ask you guys if there's a character or portrayal in this that outshines all others. So I'll come to you first for this, Rob. What about you? Who's your MVP in this?
Dan Aykroyd. I love him as an actor, and even though he's kind of stepping out of acting and stuff like that, he's making a comeback in the new Ghostbusters film.
Yeah.
It to me, it's the Dan Aykroyd of Saturday Night Live, of being the salesman. That bit on the aircraft anti-aircraft cannon.
Yeah,
that to me is superb. When he's when he's doing the speech about saying, what do we need to do if there's an air raid here? We need to knock out those lights. It's just so surreal and stupid, and that's why everybody's shooting the lights out and stuff like that. And then when he gets hit by the Santa Claus thing and goes, "I'm a bug," it's just sort of seeing the juxtaposition between him being serious. This is how you need to do something, to being sort of, I could be stupid and zany at the same time. For me, it's Dan Aykroyd. Any scene he is in, he just steals it, captures it. As far as I'm concerned. So that for me, that's the main takeaway from this.
Cool. What about you, Adrienne?
Well, I only really cared about one character at the end of the movie, and that was Bobby DeCicco's Wally.
Really?
He's the only one. Well, because he's the only one who had a heart. He cared about his girl. He didn't want her to get hurt. He's the one I care about. But if you're going to give it to acting and a star, then yeah, I give it to Dan Aykroyd too, because he saves a movie. Dan Aykroyd's character. But the only one I care about that has a heart is Wally.
It's Wally.
Yeah,
That's
he's
fair
the one.
enough.
He's the one I like, and I everybody else was being, assholeish. and Dan Aykroyd gave it to Wally. He wasn't even on active duty. He wasn't in the military. He took a lot of flack, but he gave it to him in the end. And he was the one giving the orders, and I liked that twist. Wally was a patriot, because even though he got a lot of flack for wearing the Hawaiian shirt in the restaurant, it still had American flags on it. So he was still a patriot. He still cared about his country. He cared about his girlfriend. He wasn't being horrible to her like Treat Williams' character was. So I like him. But for acting, it would be Dan Aykroyd. I think he carried it.
I do have to say, I do like that little trope that they played upon. Where I said, "You've got to knock out those lights, kid," and then 10 minutes later, "You've got to take out that sub."
I'm the line, I think we hit it. How can you tell it's going down?
It's going down. Yeah.
Sorry.
I've got to agree with Rob on this. It's got to have to be Dan Aykroyd as Frank Tree for me. Just every single time. I mean, I've seen this several times. I've watched this several times with my wife, and every single time where he straps those oranges to his face and starts pretending he's a bug, I crease up laughing. And my wife now no longer watches the film. She just looks at me with this weird kind of, "What is wrong with you?" view, because it's so childish. But I just love it.
There you go. Okay, do what you love.
Yeah. So moving on from that, what's your? Do you have a favorite aspect to the film, whether it be, the script, a particular scene, anything like that? And I'll go to you first on this one, Adrienne. Anything that you just think, oh, that's just beautiful.
I love the score and the cinematography, but I did a lot of listening to it, so I'm going to give it to the music. Yeah,
Fair
and the
enough.
40s style, marches and the music and the score.
Cool. What about you, Rob?
I think anything that happens in that house. What's the character's name? So Ed Beatty is the guy,
Ward.
and then
Ward.
Ward.
Yeah.
But it's his suffering wife,
Joan.
Joan.
Lorraine Gray
It's
character.
like,
Yeah.
I'm not
Joan
having
and Ward.
Yeah, no guns in this house. What I said, the great big cannon that gets the house gets destroyed each time he's trying to fire it. That for me is another beautiful takeaway for the film, because it's just sort of what's he doing? What does he think he can achieve? But he doesn't care. I've got a big gun. I'm going to do this.
I think my favorite bit of this is the dance scene and everything that ensues from there on. I just think it's shot so well. It's got it's got a couple of fantastic Rube Goldbergs in there. I just think it's done really, really well. So so yeah, I'll go with that. And yeah, those are our personal highlights from this. But what about you? What did you out there think? As always, to answer that, I'm going to go over to my Cult Classics Girl Friday, Sandy, for the answers to this one.
Hi.
Hiya. And it seems to have been one of those, I'm not going to say divisive titles, but it was pretty clear that if you like this one, you really like it. And if you don't, well, less said the better. Isn't that right, Sandy?
Yes, that does seem to be the non-consensus.
Yeah. Can I ask, have you seen this? What are your thoughts on it?
I have not seen this one. It does seem to have flown under my radar, and I'm surprised because it's got a lot of people in it that I really like.
Well, I mean, the consensus in the studio here is it's not too bad. So, I mean, I would recommend it, but as always, your mileage may vary. So, yeah. So, yeah. So, what does our audience have to say on this one?
Well, we have some feedback from David Kazmierski. He said some parts are great, some parts are boring. It's silly, but he still did give it 3 stars.
Cool.
Michael J.K. says, I think it's a great movie. It's loud and boisterous and crazy, and it's actually in his top 50. Aaron Von Tato says it needs like 30 minutes trimmed out of it, but he says he's always enjoyed it. Ken Masterson said it was a great movie, that he has loved it. And Leroy O. Jackson, it's not a bad movie. It's just too long and not funny. It definitely was an ego project for Spielberg, and you can tell he thinks he's making a classic for the ages. I think the fact it didn't do all that well really humbled him. And then a few more here from Nathan John. It's hard to find for streaming. So he wasn't able to give much of an opinion on it, but I'm going to look for it. John P. Malloy said the scene where Wally gets his zoot suit should have been in the first cut. So I guess there was some deleted scenes. Matt Rasnick says, I love it. I never understood the hate it got, but I also saw it much later than it was released. I feel like sometimes movies aren't in sync with the country's mood at the time. And Thomas G. Baker also loved the movie. Rick Cowling says he's only ever seen it a couple of times. It's okay, but not great. I don't think it deserved the absolute panning it got from critics, though. Glenn Brooks says once and only once. Once was too many. No stars. It's just a black hole in an otherwise stellar career. And Douglas Reynolds was feeling along his line, saying, terrible movie. Michael Palmer said he actually watched this at the cinema when it came out, and those views are always interesting. But he said, I cannot remember a thing about it, unless the vague image of John Belushi refueling his plane at a highway petrol station is from this, not an SNL thing. Warren Green said, love John Belushi in it, as well as Dan Aykroyd. And Kristen Bennett says 4 stars. It's very good. Stanley Surachek says he loved this movie, so underrated. And Dave Kovac said he liked it. Kubrick told Spielberg it would have done better if it hadn't been advertised as a comedy. 1941 is an absolutely brilliant movie. Brilliant, says Jason Slater. And Tim Wynn said he's always loved the movie and thought it was a very funny, great cast, and that Ned Beatty makes it. Yep, that's the last one.
Oh, brilliant. Well, I'll leave it to you to track down Sandy, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you think on that one. But
sounds great.
It's as I say, your mileage may vary. Some love it, some hate it. I seem to fall into the well, you'll see soon anyway. But as always, thank you for that, Sandy, and I'll see you next episode. As always, thanks to you guys out there for taking the time to let us know your opinions. As always, it's much appreciated. I'd especially like to give a shout out to those in the Long Live John Candy group on Facebook for providing some much needed perspective on this one. And if you've got a biting urge to give us your opinion on this, but feel you've missed out, don't worry. You can always hit us up on our social media to let us know your thoughts. So with that, as always, it's time to give our final score out of 5 for this one. So, yeah, Rob, I'm going to come to you because you were the one that, really wanted to get on this episode. What are your final thoughts and score out of 5 for this?
Well, for me, it's a 5. Even after watching it, after not watching it for like 20 odd years and then coming back to it when I saw the list go, and I really loved that film. I want to be on this on this podcast with you to do it. The memories all came flooding back. As far as I'm concerned, and then looking at it in a different light, it gave me a different perspective to look at things, on how the film was made, how it was produced, who were the people involved, and stuff like that. Stuff that 20 odd years ago, 30 odd years ago, maybe even 40 odd years ago, I wasn't really all that bothered about. Now I am, and so intrigued on how those things happen. So for me, yeah, I'm happy to give this one a 5. Really am.
Nice one. What about you, Adrienne?
I give it a 3 out of 5 stars. It didn't deserve 2, and it didn't deserve 4 or 5 in my brain. So I give it a 3. I still think it's watchable, but compared to all the other movies out there that you should watch and really enjoy, this one gets 3.
Oh, fair enough. Right, so bear in mind, it's me, so it's one of my conclusions. So, boy, am I in trouble now. Humor is subjective, and watching this recently, I can understand why so many just don't get on with it. It's certainly problematic in places, and the first half hour or so does drag a little. The slapstick's overabundant, it's bloated, it's overindulgent, and it's a noisy, chaotic, overstimulated mess. And I freaking love it. Yes, it's aged badly in some respects. It's got the stamp of a bunch of over-enthused teens let loose. But while some may find the number of characters and plot lines to be too much, to me, it just adds to the sheer insanity of the production. Maybe it's because I came to this at an early age, but even now, when I watch it, I'm just in awe of how crazy it is. It looks beautiful, which I don't think anyone can deny. The model work, I think is great. Direction, editing are on point, and Williams' score is a classic. Some of the performances may not be the best. The characters are annoying / unlikable, and the script has its share of problems. And it's, apologies to those out there, very American, and it's scattershot, throw everything at the wall and see what sticks approach. Maybe it would be more funny with less slapstick and allowing the characters to breathe, but honestly, I think it'd lose some of its appeal to me personally with that. It's insane. And as I said earlier, if there was ever a movie that could best be described as a live-action Muppet show, this is it. It's the closest thing to how my mind works a great deal of the time, and that's probably not a good thing. It's far from perfect, and many of the inverted comma jokes fall flat, but enough hit for me that at the end of this, I'm crying with laughter every single time. And for something I've seen this often, that's not a bad thing, surely. So chin up, Spielberg. It still works for the most part for me. and I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5, which leads to an average of, oh God, Sandy's going to love this. It's not a whole number. It's 3.83 recurring. That's the average for 1941 on Cult Classics. So what do you guys think? Respectable enough?
Yeah. I think so for sure.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I've got to be honest, when the audience feedback started coming in for this one, I thought it was going to be pretty unanimous on the negative side. And it did feel a little like us, apologies, pissing in the wind. So it is nice to see that it does have some who appreciate it. It may be a divisive one, depending on personal taste. But while it's not perfect, I don't think it's quite the unmitigated disaster some make it out to be. Well, that's it for this one. Hopefully we've kept you guys out there in the real world entertained, at least for a short while, and helped you to see that things aren't so bad at this time of the year. Either that or they could be worse. It just leaves me to thank my my guests, Rob and Adrienne, for joining me on this one. So first up, cheers, Rob. Thanks for joining us.
That's all right. Thank you for inviting me.
So you're up for coming back at some point, yeah?
Oh yeah, easy.
Nice one. Anything you'd like to draw attention to or plug while you're here? Anyone you'd like to give a shout out to or social media? You did mention it at the start. If you want to give us another go.
Did I?
Yeah, Dad, resting Dad face.
Yeah. So on Twitter, I'm known as. I call myself Resting Dad Face. I have the grand total of 34 followers. It would be nice if that went up, but it's just basically political views and satire, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, maybe some of our kind listeners will jump on.
And what's the other one? And I also did a very bad YouTube channel, grand total of 7 episodes of me and the infamous Steve Lycett driving around Scotland talking about whiskey, politics, chips, and some beautiful scenery. You can find that on YouTube. Team BS, Team Bob and Steve. As I said, 7 episodes. If you suffer from insomnia, there is 7 hours of footage of us talking rubbish, but some of the most stunning scenery you'll see in the British Isles. So there you go. There's another plug.
Oh, fantastic! Well, I'll get both of those links in the description so people can get them easily. What about you, Adrienne? Anything you want to plug while you're here?
I'm still on Twitter at ALParkTucker2. It's very political. Sorry about that. Maybe a couple dog videos or cat videos or something. And I'm mostly here with you guys talking about movies and Star Trek.
And we wouldn't have it any other way.
All right.
So, and as always, thank you out there for joining us today. Hope you've enjoyed it. If we've piqued your interest in the movie or just kept you company during these wet, grey weeks and you'd like to show your appreciation, then please drop us a tip in our Ko-fi account, link in the description. And as always, any suggestions, careful now, drop a line in the comments section or on social media. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. I'm doffing my metaphorical cap to you. Now, we'll be back same time, same place next month. That's right, on the first Tuesday of the month, which is the 5th, I believe. We'll be back to look at a predecessor to one of the most anticipated movie releases of this year. I'll not say much else, only that I'm sizing up my rubber underpants as we speak. So join us then. And don't forget to bring your bucket and spade. And in the meantime, have a great month, folks. We'll see you soon. And remember, there are 5 basic components to the new General Electric refrigerator. 1, the Freon compressor. 2, the Freon tube.
You have been listening to the Cult Classics Show, part of the Silver Screen Podcast. Created, written, and hosted by TK. Produced by Mike Wilson. Editing by Nick. Feedback section produced by Sandy Evanson. Opening credits by Ian Sanderson. Music by Timeless Journey. Follow us on social media. Links to all of our social media pages can be found on our link tree. This podcast is part of the Mike's Podcast Network, available wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for Silver Screen Podcast or Mike's Podcasts. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you next time. And remember, no matter where you go, there you are.